When I was in the 4th grade, my parents gave me this little digital camera, and one of those ones that was like super popular in the 2000s. I was excited. This was innovation to me that I could take photos of anything. And I was overwhelmed with the possibilities. I was a 4th grader. I was excited. So I asked them what I should take photos of. And they responded with, whatever makes you happy. And so I took photos of anything that would make a little 4th grader happy. I took photos of the street sign near my house because it felt like home. I took photos of this milk jug that my parents had brought home from the grocery store because the expiration date had my birthday on it, which it made me excited as a 4th grader because that meant that my birthday was coming up. I took photos of the stuffed animals that my sister and I had very nicely and neatly arranged on our beds together. We had worked together. It was perfect. These were so small, such small things in the grand scheme of the things that have made me happy in my life. But as a 4th grader, they were so important to me, so important that I felt the need to keep them stored forever on this little memory card. To this day, I still get kind of excited when I see a gallon of milk in the grocery store with my birthday on it. I do. This still has the ability to make me stop and appreciate the small things in life. These ordinary things are the truly extraordinary moments of our lives. This summer, we have been living in the parables. We've had this series of parables, and we've done this because it ties into Creators Camp, which is our children's summer program. And so we've read the sower and the leaven, the good shepherd, the good Samaritan. Last Sunday, Stephanie preached on the parable of the leaven and how things that are hidden and mixed in still matter. The things that are small can make really big things happen. Today, we are not talking about the hidden or mixed in things, but the overlooked and underestimated things. Today, we read the parable of the mustard seed. Now, Jesus sometimes told parables to teach a lesson or to answer questions. He felt that these stories would answer these questions better than just answering them directly. However, when it comes to the mustard seed parable and others like it, like the parable of the leaven, Jesus used these parables and these stories to not teach a lesson, but to describe the kingdom of God. These parables are referred to as the kingdom parables. They are still metaphors, but they aren't typically used to teach a lesson or to encourage you to do something, but rather to preach about what the kingdom of God is like. Now, you'd think if anyone could teach us about what God's kingdom is like or what God's kingdom is in the most direct way, it would be Jesus, God in the flesh himself. And I'm sure his disciples thought this too. But Jesus gives us more metaphors. Although we cannot say exactly what the kingdom of heaven is, we can describe what it is like. Jesus may realize that explaining something so holy as the kingdom of God may be difficult to do in human words and for human understanding. So Jesus tells us that describing the kingdom of heaven is okay to do in ordinary terms. A mustard seed is small and eventually grows into a plant with large enough branches that birds can nest in its shade. God's kingdom is this small seed that is planted and tended to and brought up into something much bigger. I wonder if when the disciples heard this, they rolled their eyes. I wonder if they scoffed and waited for Jesus to tell them what the kingdom of heaven was actually like. The kingdom of heaven is like a mustard seed? That's very funny, Jesus. I plant mustard all day, they would say. I've never seen heaven in a mustard seed. No, because they thought God would describe the kingdom of heaven as our psalm does, big and grand. Our psalm said things like, the Lord's voice breaks cedar trees. He makes the Lebanon jump around like a young bull. The Lord's voice unleashes fiery flames. The Lord's voice convulses the oaks, strips the forest bare. The Lord sits enthroned over the floodwaters, king forever. they don't want to hear about mustard seeds. This feels very much like Charlie Brown going trick-or-treating, and his friends are saying, I got a quarter, I got a full-size candy bar. And Charlie Brown says, I got a rock. They've heard about the kingdom in these amazing ways. They've seen kingdoms. They are familiar with royalty. They know King Herod. They have seen this army. They felt the wrath of his army. And now they are hearing that their kingdom, the one they got, is a mustard seed. That doesn't feel very fair. Jesus taught in parables to give new ways for us to think about who God is and what God's kingdom is like. Jesus brought new understanding from old beliefs. Jesus tells us that there is room for both of these. God's kingdom can simultaneously be powerful and bold enough to get justice for God's people, but it can also be gentle and ordinary enough to be found in our church kitchen or in a garden. Jesus shows us this in his life. He fed thousands. He walked on water. He healed people. He performed miracles. And yet, his disciples asked him, "What is the kingdom of heaven like?" As though they hadn't seen it around them, all around them before. They also need to hear of the ordinary things in order to understand. Jesus shows us this. Jesus did some very mustard-like things, some very mustard seed-like things. These disciples figured that Jesus would come in swinging, again, like King Herod, that Jesus would demolish current systems and take over and have guards and an army at his beck and call, but that is not what Jesus did. Jesus took his time going city to city. Jesus sat and ate with Zacchaeus. He took time to say, I'm coming over for dinner tonight, not right now, later tonight. He waited his afternoon away. He made his way over for dinner, and he sat and he ate with him. When the disciples told Jesus' followers to move their kids away from Jesus because they were taking up too much of Jesus' room, Jesus didn't just correct his disciples. He took the time to affirm the families and the children in his presence, correct his disciples, and then he proceeds to teach on why it's so important for children to hear the good news of God. Bread takes time to rise. Mustard seeds take time to grow. And Jesus takes time to do the small things that have a big impact. Now, to this group of people at this particular time, they hear mustard seed and think of something that is actively growing in their fields. They hear yeast and think of something that is actively being used in their breads. They use and cultivate these things on a daily basis. For us, we get our mustard from a grocery store in a bright yellow bottle. Our bread, most of the time, comes in a bag, also from the grocery store. These are things that we are a bit more far removed from than these people would have been. Maybe our metaphor would be different. Maybe it wouldn't be mustard seeds. Maybe since it's Iowa, it would be seed corn. But it would be something that is near to us, both in familiarity and proximity. Jesus brings the story right to their backyard, right to their homes, and then asks the question, what if the kingdom of God wasn't some far-off exotic place that requires a map and a whole journey to find, but what if the X that marks the spot is right here, in the ordinary people, in the ordinary places of our lives? Jesus doesn't give us a map to follow or a story of traveling to some faraway place to find the kingdom of God, but he tells a story of a kingdom that falls right in our own backyards, right in our kitchens. Bread that is being baked for people. Mustard seeds that are growing to their full potential. The where is here. The when is all around us in its own time as bread rises and as plants grow and flower. What if the kingdom of heaven isn't always like cedar trees breaking and waves crashing? What if the kingdom of heaven is like having dinner with a neighbor who's going through a hard time? What if the kingdom of heaven is like growing vegetables and bringing them to Bible study to share with others? There's this trend right now on social media, maybe some of you have seen it, people refer to it as romanticizing your own life, making your life feel as though every small thing is important. Now, oftentimes, this looks like a very social media perfect way of taking extra time in the morning with your coffee or stopping to enjoy rainstorms. Now, this isn't always an option for those of us who are running around to make the busyness of life happen. However, I feel like living in the parables begs us to slow down, enjoy the overlooked things, and embody this idea of romanticizing our lives. Again, maybe not in the social media perfect way, but in a realistic way, in a very mustard seed way. We can give power to the things that often go overlooked. We have that ability to do that. I don't always want to go out and water my garden. Sometimes it's easier to just forget to do it before work. It's hot, I'm tired, I'm probably already running late, and hopefully my husband Nick will get to it before I do. I'm not joking. Sometimes Nick and I will play rock, paper, scissors to decide who has to go out and water the garden that day. I don't think I watered this morning, actually. But it is nice to wake up with the world and water before it gets too hot out, to enjoy these little moments of being in nature. Each day the growth is slow. My tomato plants aren't growing as fast as I'd like them to. But at the end of the season, I will get to make some really yummy tomato sauce. It is work. These moments don't happen all of the time. Sometimes it's a bit of work to get to the point where we get to enjoy what our mustard seed has become. Sometimes we get impatient or upset because we want quick answers. We want immediate change. We see something that is wrong in the world, and we get upset when it's not fixed in the way that we want it to be. And I say we because I made myself, and I hope that someone out there agrees with me. I don't always want the kingdom of God to look like a mustard seed. I want it to look like what the disciples wanted it to look like sometimes. God is holy and powerful and brings justice swiftly in my time. But Jesus shows us this isn't always the case. God is holy and powerful, but things come in their own time, in God's own time. Jesus tells us that the kingdom of God is like a seed that grows into a much bigger plant. The kingdom of God isn't just the seed or just the plant, but it's the seed and the sprout and the bush and all of the steps in between. These are the small things, these mustard seeds, that deserve the power we give them when we romanticize the small things in our lives. We think we are looking for big gestures, but God is in the small things, in the unassuming and overlooked things, in the everyday, ordinary things, like bread, like bushes, like seeds, and like milk jugs. Church history has partially illustrated this for us. The seed of Jesus' story has grown tremendously. And the parable continues to be an encouragement where the work of Christ is still as small as a mustard seed. This summer at Creators Camp, we've been encouraging the kids that rather than asking questions of them that need answers, or asking leading questions, we've been inviting them to just wonder. We don't need an answer, just wonder. And this can be hard for us adults to do, but this parable doesn't come with a life lesson or challenge that I'm leaving you with. So I would invite you to wonder. I wonder what around us is still coming into its own time. I wonder where you see humanity and nature working together like we do in the parables. I wonder when we go out on a limb to provide for others like the mustard bush provides for the birds. I wonder what it looks like when we do what we were put here to do. Mustard seeds are all around us. We just must be willing to notice them and give them the power that they deserve. May it be so.